that maybe he knew what he was doing, that he
I think it's very clear that he did not really.
The Liberals are trying to rewrite the Constitution, criminalizing whatever they call hate, and building fake houses for photo ops because apparently pretending to govern is so much easier than actually doing it. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment your thoughts down below. As always, share this video. Canada's economy continues to crumble. The lies just get louder and louder every day when it comes to all of these trade negotiations. But naturally, Mark Carney is in Mexico giving speeches about how brilliant he is. And, I guess just pretending that he runs the world and is actually incredibly important because running Canada clearly is not working out for him. Pierre Poilievre is vaporizing Mélanie Joly and other Liberal caucus members. Unfortunately for them, facts still matter to us, and optics are all they have left.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister believes in having a strong relationship with Mexico, our second biggest trading partner. Now, the other thing that the leader of the opposition needs to understand is that we're living in a much more dangerous and complicated world with trade tensions having impacts on trading partners all around the world. We will stand up for workers, we'll stand up for our businesses, and we will build Canada strong.
This is the time in the life cycle of any Liberal government when they go from making promises to making excuses. So they're blaming their collapsing economy on global tensions. But interestingly, Mexico shares the same neighbor as we do. The Mexican economy has actually grown by 2.4%. The Canadian economy down by 1.6%. Our unemployment is three times what theirs is. Why?
Mr. Speaker, what is shocking from the leader of the opposition comments is always talking down Canadian workers, Canadian businesses, the Canadian economy. You know what? Good news is the Bank of Canada yesterday reduced rates. We should all be celebrating that. This is good news, Mr. Speaker. And we will be there for businesses in the tariff sectors, including aluminum, steel, auto, copper, and all the other sectors, because we know that these workers are important, these businesses are important, and we have a plan to build Canada strong.
If trade tensions are a reason behind our collapse, why hasn't Mexico collapsed? Mélanie Joly cannot answer that question. Instead, her argument completely crumbles as she literally just says he's talking down to Canadian workers. That's gaslighting. He's not insulting workers. He's actually pointing out how much the government has failed them, and he's speaking to them. Oh, well, the Bank of Canada, they cut rates. That's a really good thing. Yeah, that is not a victory lap. That's a warning sign. Banks typically cut rates unless your economy is absolutely thriving. When the economy is in trouble. Do you want to know what Mexico did? They cut red tape, they welcomed industry, and they built energy infrastructure. Three things Canada refuses to do while, we just instead hike taxes, strangle energy, and chased investors out the door. The difference is not geography, it's solely government.
For almost 3 decades. So the Prime Minister is going for nothing more than a photo op, another fake engagement. Just like the minister talks about interest rates, the Bank of Canada said the reason they're cutting rates while inflation is rising is because our economy is collapsing. They promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. They've delivered the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. They promised more home building. It's falling by 13%.
And just so you can have a great idea of how absolute BS this government is, Mark Carney staged a housing announcement in front of a fake 3-story structure. I've actually been personally emailed this with pictures from various angles from people who live in the region. This structure was built solely for the press conference and photo op and then torn down afterwards.
Pinapian, I am at the location of Prime Minister Carney's housing announcement a few days ago, and there is nothing here. So all those buildings were brought in just for the photo op.
And you know what's just the worst about this is the fact that it visually misled the public. So if you think they aren't doing that in every other sector, if they're willing to go to this extent for a press conference, they couldn't find a single actual project under construction that they had to build one for use here. you would be an idiot to assume that they're not doing that at much higher scales. And worse, they use taxpayer money for this political theater to try to pretend the optics are rebuilding housing. Look at this big fake construction project behind me. You're manipulating it during a housing crisis. That has got to be one of the most vile and evil things.
They promise to spend less. Their deficit spending is 100% more. You know, talk is cheap, but why is it so expensive when this Prime Minister does it?
The opposition believes in isolationism, which is basically that Canada is by itself in the world. We believe that we need to engage in the world. We need to make sure that Canada is working with trading partners from Mexico, from Europe to Asia. And that is why the Prime Minister will continue to travel to make sure to engage with leaders of this in the world, because we believe that it is the way to build a strong economy at home, save and protect jobs, create new ones, attract foreign direct investments, and ultimately to make sure that Canada's voice of peace and multilateralism is heard in the world.
We've had free trade agreements with all of those countries and regions for over a decade. And yet the Prime Minister is busy, looking busy, flying around, grip and grin, pretending to do a lot while doing very little. But he could make use of all of that expensive travel by asking all of those other places why their economy is so much stronger than the one that he now leads. He got, under his leadership, the second highest unemployment in the G7, the worst economic growth in the G7, the worst household debt in the G7, and the worst household debt and housing costs in the G7. Why is it that when he promises to be the first, he's the worst?
You know, God bless Stephen Harper and the Conservatives for getting all of those trade deals done. Many of which, by the way, were shut down by Justin Trudeau, saying there's no business case when they came to us begging for various resources that we had that we were completely capable of giving them. But nope, no business case there. You would think after their decade of partnership and multilateralism that Canada's trade with our so-called allies would be increasing rather than, exports to the U.S. are down. Our EU deal is currently stalled. Our Asia strategy is still a press release, and foreign investment is fleeing this country faster than Liberal staffers after a scandal.
Speaker, these aren't new markets. The member might have been asleep. Actually, he seems like a very young man. Maybe he wasn't born when Brian Mulroney negotiated NAFTA with the Mexicans. Maybe the Prime Minister was sleeping the day Conservatives negotiated a free trade agreement with the Europeans. He's going around taking credit for things that he never did while his economy collapses here at home. Canadians cannot eat, heat, or house themselves. Will the Prime Minister stop making excuses, taking fake trips, and get down to his job?
And leave it up to none other than the Bloc to really, really drive the reality home.
Our relationship with Mexico is the fifth in importance in matters of trade. 80% of what Canada exports is to United States. It will let you calculate approximatively the importance of the Mexican market for Canada. So let's improve that. But in no way could we compare the Mexican market for Canada and the American market for Canada.
You know those nights when you just don't really sleep? You think you do, but you don't. And then the next day you're dragging, you're exhausted, and everything just feels so much harder. Well, that's where CBD from CB Distillery can make a real difference. But it's not just sleep. CB Distillery has solutions that work with your body to help with stress, pain after exercise, even mood and focus. And it's all made with the highest quality clean ingredients. No fillers, just premium CBD. Imagine waking up just well rested, feeling restored without any nagging aches and pains. That is the real win of CB Distillery solutions. And it's why over 2 million people trust CB Distillery. I'll be a little vulnerable here. I have had for so many years a lot of trouble when it comes to falling asleep. It's like all of the thoughts, all of my worst memories, most like terrible childhood moments just come creeping back up into my brain and get me all worked up right as I'm trying to relax and turn off for the day. And so I have actually been using CBN and CBD to help me sleep for the last year or so, and it has made such an incredible difference. So if you are ready for a better sleep, less stress, and just feeling good in your skin again, try CBD from CB Distillery. Plus, right now, you can save 25% off your entire purchase. Visit CB Distillery and use the promo code JASMINE, JASMIN. That's cbdistillery.com with the promo code JASMINE to get 25% off.
So many countries around the world have, on paper, very robust and rigorous rules and processes to get big projects built or natural resources developed. And they're all done under the guise of environmental protection or labor codes.
Russia's efforts have helped us slow down global warming by almost an year. We have significantly reduced greenhouse gas emissions.
And yet when you think of these countries, you don't think of great labor practices or robust environmental protection. And when you look at the challenges in all these countries, you wouldn't really say that they're functioning well, would you? The people in charge are just dictators. And everyone talks about how corrupt everything is, how to get something done, you gotta pay off a politician. Bribery is a line item on the books of most corporations operating in those economies. So how is it that these countries can have similar robust laws and regulations in place and approvals processes, but have such terrible results? It's because they all have something in common: selective enforcement. In each of these countries, powerful politicians pick and choose which projects get approved, who gets the permit, and by extension, who makes the money. It's not about who is actually following the rules and regulations, who's got the best product, or who's found the best way to serve the marketplace. It's who's the best connected, who paid off the right politician, who got in front of the right decision makers and convinced them to give them the green light. And thanks to Mark Carney, that selective enforcement is now actually enshrined in law in Canada. With one piece of legislation, Mark Carney has now given himself the same power that dictators the world over have used to make themselves more rich and more powerful.
And man, is it ever just interesting to see how much control the federal Liberal government wants to have. Because, Sean Fraser, funny enough, our justice minister, don't know how he failed up so hard. He has submitted a factum to the Supreme Court of Canada arguing that the court should limit when legislators can use the notwithstanding clause and allow courts to strike down uses of the clause that they deem improper. Huh, wow. Okay, got it. You know, the thing that's really weird about that, though, is right now the courts have zero power to review the use of Section 33. If a government invokes it, that's really just the end of the matter until voters weigh in, of course. So Fraser is asking the court to invent a new power that doesn't exist in Canadian Constitution, claiming that it can be found in the basic constitutional structure, which is, a vague concept not written anywhere in law. And he's asking the court to adopt the basic structure doctrine, which is used in places like India, as an example, where courts have used it to strike down laws passed by elected governments by claiming that they violate these unwritten principles. So more or less, in plain English, what Sean Fraser and the Liberal governments are actually planning here, and I want you to just, in the background here, just keep it in your mind, somewhere in there, the actual issues that our country is facing right now, and the fact that they're spending their time on this, and what does that mean to you? What does that signal to you? As Caliber magazine on X writes, a months-old minority government urging the Supreme Court to place limits on a section of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, hereby subverting a fundamental component of our Confederation, all without a single debate in the House, should be cause for a non-confidence vote. Oh, and just a fun little fact. I was looking up more details about who was appointed in the Supreme Court, and I came across this. I'm so embarrassed by this, actually. It's so irrelevant. It means nothing. It's discriminatory as far as I can tell. But on the Canadian government website, which outlines all of the justices and whatever throughout the entire country, there is actually a specific category for total number of women judges. Are you kidding me? We're not a serious country. The more you know. Anyway, back to Sean Fraser. What he is wanting right now is that unelected judges will have a veto over laws passed by elected governments, even when those governments are indeed acting within their constitutional powers. Yeah. And you know what is just even more damning, that just highlights how disgustingly incompetent this government is that inside of this brief, he says that the court need not establish a definitive or exhaustive test and should instead decide on a case-by-case contextual analysis, which means there's no clear rules at all, just unelected judges using their own opinions to decide what is acceptable. That seems to be quite a pattern, and it's definitely not the rule of law. It's the rule of opinion and hurt feelings.
We are moving forward with a piece of legislation that will create 4 new criminal offenses. The first 2 are aimed at protecting religious institutions with the new crimes of obstruction and intimidation. This will ensure those who gather to practice their faith at religious institutions, schools, community centers, and other buildings and structures that primarily serve identifiable communities will have the ability to do so freely and without fear that they will be targeted because of who they are. We also have realized through many conversations with those impacted by hate crimes in Canada that hate is not limited to the doorsteps of our religious institutions, but is prevalent throughout the entirety of our communities. We see it in our streets, we see it in our parks, we see it in our grocery stores. Frankly, we see it almost everywhere. In addition to the campaign commitments around the crimes of obstruction and intimidation, we are moving forward with establishing a new crime of hate. This will operate by layering on top of existing criminal offenses with a new offense that will specifically target hate where that crime was committed because of their motivation of hatred towards the victim. You can imagine that it may be more morally culpable for a person who assaults another, not just because of a personal problem they may have, but because of their belonging to a community. If a person robs a store because the owner comes from a particular group, or if a person commits harassment against someone who is seeking to attend university classes merely because they belong to a particular community of faith or race. This behavior is not just morally culpable. The impact has reverberations through the entirety of a community, and I would argue tears at the seams of the social fabric of the nation.
Excuse me for sounding a little bit too honest about this one. Sean Fraser says that hate has torn at the social fabric of the nation. He specifically mentions religious freedoms, cultural indifferences, that sort of thing. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. But the part that he won't say out loud is this. That is exactly why immigration policy matters so much. Because when you bring in record numbers of individuals from countries that have deep historical and often violent conflicts with each other, and you bring them in so fast that there's no time or infrastructure to integrate them into a shared culture, Canadian values, you don't get harmony. You get parallel societies living in the same space, glaring at each other through a very thin veil of tolerance until it shatters. And we have seen that full force for the last almost 2 years now. Hate does not appear out of nowhere. It festers where there is no common ground. Integration builds common ground, but integration takes time. It takes limits. It takes shared values and compassion and good role models and examples around you. Canada used to understand this, that immigration works when it is paced and rooted in assimilation, not just raw numbers because we are absolutely being destroyed economically and we need to temporarily spike our GDP numbers so that nobody else realizes just how bad of a situation that we're actually in. So now the government floods the country with mass migration at this breaking neck speed and then acts shocked when their imported rivalries spill into our streets, when their foreign conflicts spill into our streets, and their solution is not to halt that, to come to a true place of understanding and healing, for there to be accountability and justice when people do something wrong. No, they get out on bail. No, they get citizenship expedited. Their solution is instead to criminalize the speech that may or may not end up pointing that out. So if hate is tearing at the fabric of our nation, which it is, I agree, maybe stop shredding it on purpose.
The way he formed that first cabinet, that maybe he knew what he was doing, that he
I think it's very clear that he did not really. I'm sorry. Like, the immigration minister needs to be shuffled. I don't know what happened with that vetting process. And there are other people who, it's not just the opposition who has that viewpoint. So I think that there would have been a cabinet shuffle even without.
And to have even CBC on their panel talking about how incompetent some of the ministers are in Mark Carney's cabinet is truly something to pay attention to. They screwed up really bad. And the worst part here, though, I've had so many people ask me this, like, oh, well, what do you think about all of these rumored ministers that are going to be leaving, MPs stepping down? I don't know that I have much to say about it other than the fact that I'm not surprised because they have done a terrible job. And I'm actually quite fearful of who will replace them, who will be a better ideological fit for Carney. I hope that it ends up working out in our country's favor because our future depends on it. Not a good track record so far, and that has me feeling quite uneasy. I'm Jasmine Lane. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment your thoughts down below. I do plan on getting really into some stuff happening in the US, some Charlie Kirk updates, as well as Jimmy Kimmel, and just this really ridiculous meltdown that the left does not seem to know how to understand or rationalize right now. So that is going to be coming up for you tomorrow. I know yesterday I said that was coming today, but I got a little distracted with other things in the news. And honestly, waiting a little bit longer provides me with even more content to give to you and more analysis on the many opinions I'm seeing across the globe right now. So I will talk to you very, very soon.